Hey there, this is Paula Pant, host of the Afford Anything podcast. I'm answering audience questions alongside former financial planner Joe Saul-Sehy. And we're about to tackle a question from a caller who tripled his income. So now that he suddenly makes more money than ever, he's got a lot of questions. Let's hear how he's grappling with an enviable problem.
Hi, Paula and Joe. This is Chris doing a follow-up from episode 358. Thank you for all you do. A couple questions. My assets currently are $225,000 in retirement account, $18,000 in emergency funds, $14,000 in cash that I use to dollar cost average. I currently have a mortgage now. I bought my house at $265,000. I bought in October of last year, and I owe $210,000 as of March. My liabilities are, instead of my sinking fund for my car, I splurged a little bit and bought the car that I want. The car now is valued at $38,000, but I owe $27,000 on it. No credit card debt, no loans. I do have a water filter in my home now that I owe about $6,000, which I can pay off tomorrow if I wanted to. But I don't see the point because it is a very low interest rate. I contribute about 23% of my income. I changed careers just before moving to Texas, which gave me the opportunity to 3 times my income right now. But all of my expenses now are on one income of about $95,000. So I have an extra $6,000 to $7,000 after taxes extra that I can do whatever I want with. So my questions to you are, because I pay an extra $600 for my mortgage, it is a 30-year loan, but I pay as if it's just 15 years. Should I continue that path, and for how long? And 2, I pay about $200 a week into my total market fund that I dollar cost average for this year. Is it wise for me to continue doing so? Can I increase that amount or diversify into other types of accounts? And if so, what would those accounts be? Joe, you mentioned last episode to look into efficient frontiers. How can I get into that? 3, because of my old employer, I have about $60,000 in my 401k sitting. Should I convert that money into my Roth? And if I were to convert it today, it would still be into total market. So should I take the tax hit or just keep it there for it to continue growing? 4, because of my abundance right now, would you advise I get a financial advisor with assets under management fee structure? Why or why not? And my last question is, I do want a second home to improve my lifestyle and be closer to downtown. Should I use my current equity for my home or wait a little longer to save? I inquired a little bit, and currently I would have to pay current market rate for interest rates, and because it would be considered an investment property, I would pay more. So I would have to wait a year to do so. Should I wait, or can I take equity and pay for the second home? The current home that I live in, if I were to do that, I will rent it out for cash flow. And my last question is, how can I really take advantage of my opportunities right now with abundance of money that I initially did not plan for, but I have now, but I really want to do my best to manage it and enjoy life and to be able to give to family when in need, but also understand that I have my future to plan for. I still plan to have a family. I still plan to get married. So thank you all so much for your support and for your advice. Thank you.
Chris, first of all, congratulations on tripling your income. That's incredible. You switched careers, you tripled your income. You have $225,000 saved in your retirement accounts. You've got a healthy emergency fund. You've got a bunch of cash. You have already pretty decent equity in your home. You've got more than $50,000 of equity in your home, even though you only bought it in October of last year. You've got decent equity in your car as well. So congratulations on tripling your income and on using that money to put yourself into a better financial place, on building equity, on growing your net worth. That's incredible. So first thing I got to say is congrats on all of that. Now, to answer your questions, I love the fact that you are paying your 30-year mortgage as if it's a 15-year. You're pretending that it's a 15-year. You're paying an extra $600 a month towards it. That is wonderful. But, and here's the but, you also said that you're interested in buying a second home and converting your first home into a rental property. If that is something that you want to do, then you're going to need to save a down payment. So if you are serious about that, then I would take that extra $600 a month that you are currently using to pay down your mortgage and put it into a fund that you can use to save for a down payment on your next property. Second, you mentioned that you are contributing $200 a week into a total market fund, and you asked if you should increase that amount. Again, it depends on your goals. Would you rather focus on index fund investing, or would you rather save for a down payment and diversify into real estate? And a lot of that is going to depend on what do you want your ideal portfolio composition to be? What mix of index funds versus real estate do you want your total net worth to feature? Start with that decision. What mix of assets do you want? Index funds versus real estate. That's going to inform whether or not you should increase your contributions into index funds generally. If you decide that, yes, you do want to increase your contributions to index funds generally, then you can look at your asset allocation in terms of total market fund versus other types of funds. And that leads to your question about efficient frontier investing. There's a ton of information online that allows you to deep dive into the efficient frontier. I would suggest episode 357 and episode 380, which you have, I believe, already listened to.
But the place he's looking for, if he wants to play around with one, there's a free spot called Portfolio Visualizer. Just do a Bing search on Portfolio Visualizer, and you'll be good.
A Bing search. My goodness.
Get paid, Paula. Get paid.
Portfolio Visualizer is a great way to play around with the efficient frontier.
Yeah. Experiment with it.
You asked about whether or not you should convert your 401k into a Roth account. I'm generally a big fan of Roth accounts, but that is going to have some tax implications. And that really leads perfectly to your final question. Should you get a financial advisor? I think clearly yes, because there's a lot that you are trying to manage. And having an advisor who can guide you through, who can speak to very specific things, such as the tax implications of converting your 401k into a Roth, and who can offer custom-tailored, personalized guidance, I think there's a lot of value in that. I would recommend two things. Number one, I personally am not a fan of the assets under management fee structure. I am personally a fan of a financial advisor who charges at an hourly rate. And it's going to be a high hourly rate, but they're worth it, right? A good advisor is worth a high hourly rate. But I think that the hourly rate structure is, for me personally, something that I like better than assets under management. So look for someone with an hourly rate structure, and look for someone, of course, who has a fiduciary duty to you at all times. So the question to ask is, or two questions. Number one, do you have a fiduciary duty to me at all times? Question number two, are you dually registered?
I think when it comes to the hourly rate versus assets under management, because I wanted to dive into that too, it truly is much more about you. You're going to pay a ton more money over time for assets under management, which I think there's a fair number of people listening to the show that don't need to pay that additional fee. But being a guy who's been there before, and I've worked with people, I will tell you the problem isn't 85% of the stuff we talk about on the show. The problem is the average investor blows himself up by doing stupid crap with their money. So we can focus on the fees that you're going to pay with the asset under management model, or we can focus on the fact that you will actually leave your money invested and do the right thing over time. You're going to pay a good amount for that. However, I'll tell you, Paula, there's a lot of people out there, far more than I think the people in financial media want to admit, that would do way, way, way better if they had somebody else manage that money. Who cares about the fees? we blow ourselves up. If you can stay away from that, then I am 100% on board with Paula. But you. What have you done in the past? Are you going to find a way to not ruin your own financial plan by touching the money at the worst time, by placing silly bets instead of keeping a long-term approach, by getting very panicked when the market goes down and withdrawing money at the wrong time, or deciding that I don't want to put new money in at the right time? I think that those are the questions that I think only you can answer. With regard to the rest of your questions, the issue I had for the duration of your questions was, what are you trying to do? And I know you have these short-term things you're trying to do, like buying the second house, maybe pay off the mortgage, but paying off the mortgage truly isn't a goal, Paula. I mean, that's a way to eliminate a speed bump, which is this debt payment that you have, so that you can achieve something else. I mean, for me, when people tell me that they're trying to pay off debt truly to me is not a goal. It's a hurdle I want to eliminate. And so if I pay off the debt, what am I going to do then? What's the longer term stuff that you want to do? Because I don't know any of those things, I have no idea what the answer to those questions are. Because as an example, putting more money toward the mortgage, paying off the mortgage quickly, for some people, that's the worst thing for you to do. For other people, that is a fantastic option. But I got to know what's behind that. You know, what's the next thing, and how conservative can we afford to be? If we can afford to be more conservative, then definitely let's pay off the mortgage. But you and I know, Paula, that's a very conservative strategy.
Right.
And for people that need a higher return on their money because they're not reaching the aggressive goals they have, then paying off the mortgage should be the last priority, because generally that's at a very low interest rate, and we can beat that by focusing on the long-term goals and just knowing that there's going to be a little friction with the mortgage instead. So I don't know, which is why I agree with you, the financial planner and somebody you can talk to that will answer, how do these things all dovetail? Mm-hmm. Because one's going to affect the other one. One goal is going to affect another goal. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a perfect illustration of trade-offs. The $600 a month that he's paying towards an accelerated paydown of his mortgage on his primary residence is necessarily money that is not being used as additional investments into a total market fund or as savings towards a down payment.
And I've given people advice on either side of that, depending on what is beyond that goal.
Right.
That's also going to fuel his asset allocation goals, because as an example, while he's looking at the efficient frontier and proper asset allocation, what's that based on? It's based on what's the rate of return he's trying to achieve, because efficient frontier doesn't work in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. It works in I need an 8% return. So historically, what's the mix of assets that gets me there with the least amount of risk? Mm-hmm. Well, the way to do that is to find out what rate of return he needs to safely reach his goal at his current investing rate. Mm. What is that number? Right. So then we're going to determine what the portfolio expectations are based on that. Frankly, Chris, playing around with the efficient frontier is going to mean nothing to you until you know what that rate of return is that you're trying to achieve, which is why I would begin at the end and say, okay, how much money do I want to try to live on? Just a base number. And I know for some people listening to this that are in their 20s, and we're talking about maybe in your, that's a long ways away. So just pick a number that's like your lifestyle today to start with. You're going to want to re-examine this plan as you go, and then work backward. And you're going to come up with a function that is just two numbers. I need to save X and I need to get Y return. That's what I need. Once I have that return number, then I plug that number into the efficient frontier and go, okay, this is how I should structure my investments. Mm. And I would even, I know you've had Nick Majuli on the show. I've also talked to Nick on Stacking Benjamins. I totally agree with Nick that getting granular around your asset allocation matters a lot more once the daily movements of your portfolio mean more than the amount you're putting in. I like using the total market index until you get to that point. Like, I forget it. Who cares about your asset allocation? When putting $100 a month means more than whether you get $100 in your return, just keep buying. Just buy more, buy more, buy more, buy more. And when you get to the point that now, if I put in $100, it doesn't matter nearly as much as the fluctuation of the funds, then I get much more granular, because you're going to have a big impact on going from a total market index to a much more analytical approach at that point.
Right, exactly. At the beginning of your journey, your contributions matter far more than your asset allocation.
Yeah. So to quote Nick, just keep buying.
Mm-hmm. It's the title of his book. Well, thank you, Chris, for asking that question. Congratulations again on tripling your income.